The sun over the crimson wastes of Zyra 9 didn't rise, it attacked. Blazing down like a molten god's judgment. It turned the endless dunes into rivers of fire and shimmered the air until reality itself seemed to melt. Smoke from yesterday's battle still clung to the horizon, thin and black, curling like the last breath of a dying world. Across the scorched flats, bodies lay half-buried in the red sand. Some human, most not. Among them, alone and unmoving, was a man. His armor was cracked, his helmet gone, and one side of his uniform had been seared away by plasma fire. Blood, dried and crusted, painted his jawline like war paint. He wasn't dead, not yet, but he might as well have been. Around him, Zyran scavenger beetles skittered, their obsidian shells clicking as they searched for carrion. He didn't flinch when one crawled over his boot. He barely breathed. Then came the sound, deep, rhythmic, like thunder dragged across stone. Hoofs, dozens of them. Sand sprayed in arcs as the riders crested the dune. Their mounts, six-legged, scaled beasts with glowing yellow eyes, snorting clouds of dust. At their center sat the one they all feared and worshipped. Vela of the Crimson Bloom, High Matriarch of the Zara, last scion of the Skyfire clan. She sat astride her mount like she'd been carved from obsidian and starlight, tall, imperious, and terrifyingly beautiful. Her skin was the deep violet of twilight storm clouds, her long hair white as bone and braided with shards of alien glass that caught the sun like frozen lightning. Her eyes, silver with slit pupils, swept the battlefield without pity. Behind her, bound to the saddles of her honor guard, were the remains of her latest suitors. 3 of them, all aliens from noble houses across the galactic rim. All dead, their heads lolled forward, necks broken clean. Their ceremonial robes were stained with sand and shame. Vela hadn't even bothered to use her blade on them. She'd simply looked at them after their boasts, sniffed once and said, "You smell like fear and lies." Then her warriors dragged them away. It had become routine. She dismounted with a grace that defied her lethal reputation, boots sinking slightly into the red sand. Her warriors fanned out but kept their distance. No one spoke. No one dared. Vela walked past the dead without a glance, her gaze fixed on the lone human figure sprawled in the sand. He was different. Not just because he was human, humans were rare out here past the edge of the Terran protectorate, but because he hadn't run. Even the fiercest of her suitors had begged when they realized what she was. This one hadn't even opened his eyes. She stopped a few paces away. "Breathe," she said, her voice low and rough, like wind through canyon bones. He didn't. She crouched. Not out of mercy. Vela didn't do mercy, but out of curiosity. That was dangerous. Curiosity had gotten stronger warriors killed. She reached out, 2 fingers extended, and pressed them against his throat. A pulse. Faint but there. Then she smelled it. Not sweat. Not blood. Not fear. Sandalwood. It was faint, almost gone, buried beneath gunpowder and dried plasma burns. But unmistakable. A scent she hadn't encountered since she was a child, before the Skyfire clan was gutted by betrayal, before she took up the obsidian blade and swore never to marry, never to trust, never to bend. Her nostrils flared. Her silver eyes narrowed. "Bring him," she ordered, standing abruptly. Her warriors exchanged glances. One dared to speak. "Matriarch, he's Terran. A soldier. Probably scum." Vela turned slowly. Her hand drifted to the hilt of her blade. The warrior swallowed and backed away. "He lives," she said. "For now." They lifted the human carefully, more carefully than they'd handled the corpses of the suitors, and slung him across the back of a spare mount. Vela mounted her own beast, her white hair whipping in the hot wind, and led the silent procession away from the battlefield, toward the spires of her desert citadel. Obsidian spire, a fortress carved from the heart of a fallen meteor. His name was Ren Torvik. He didn't remember saying it at first. He remembered fire, screams, the roar of alien engines as his platoon was cut down during the failed raid on Zyra 9. He remembered trying to cover Private Lyra's retreat before a plasma bolt tore through his side. After that, blackness, then pain, then the scent of something sweet and sharp, like crushed herbs and metal. He woke on a pallet of woven reeds, beneath a ceiling of black stone veined with glowing blue crystals. The room was circular, sparse but elegant. No windows, only archways draped with flowing silks the color of dried blood. His wounds had been cleaned, bandaged with something that felt alive. It pulsed faintly against his skin, knitting flesh as it cooled. And standing in the archway, arms crossed, was Vela. She changed into a simpler robe, still regal, still edged with silver thread, but less armored. The desert heat clung to her like a lover. She studied him with those unreadable eyes. "You're not dead," she said. "I've been told that's a temporary condition," Ren croaked, his voice raw. She didn't smile, but something flickered in her expression. Amusement? Surprise? He couldn't tell. "You are Ren Torvik," she said. "Infantry 3rd Terran Recon. You were part of the strike team that tried to sabotage our plasma forges." "I was part of the team that got turned into ash," he corrected. "I didn't sabotage anything. I just ran out of bullets." She stepped closer. "Why didn't you run when you saw us?" "I was unconscious. You were conscious enough to smell like sandalwood." Ren blinked. "I what?" "Your soap," she said, as if it were obvious. "Or your oil. Humans use it. Some do. My mother used it." She turned away, her white hair swaying. "It is forbidden here. Too soft. Too human." Ren sat up slowly, wincing. "So why am I not dead?" Vela was silent for a long moment. Outside, the wind howled through the spires, a lonely, keening sound. "Because you didn't beg," she finally said. "Because you smell like memory, not ambition. And because I am tired of suitors who think a woman like me can be won with titles and threats." She turned back. "You will serve as my personal guard." Ren stared. "You're joking." "I do not joke," she said flatly. "You will wear no weapon. You will speak only when spoken to. You will stand outside my chamber. And if you betray me, I will break your spine with my bare hands." He should have laughed. He should have refused. But something in her voice, not cruelty, but exhaustion, made him pause. This wasn't just a warlord. This was a woman who'd buried everyone she loved, who'd been hunted by empires and courted by liars, who'd made a fortress of her heart and called it a throne. "Fine," he said, "but I get better bandages." To his shock, the corner of her mouth twitched. Just once. Then it was gone. Days passed. Ren healed. He stood guard outside Vela's chamber, barefoot on cool stone, wrapped in a simple gray tunic. The other Zara warriors eyed him with suspicion, but none challenged him. Word had spread. The humans smelled like the matriarch's past. That made him untouchable, for now. He watched her rule. She judged disputes between clan elders with sharp fairness. She oversaw the training of young warriors, correcting their stances with a tap of her staff that could have shattered bone, yet never did. She walked the battlements at night, alone, staring at the twin moons. And every time she passed him, she paused, just for a breath, as if checking that the scent was still there. One evening, during a sandstorm that rattled the spire like a drum, Vela summoned him inside. Her chamber was vast, a circular room open to the sky, where wind and stars poured in unfiltered. She sat on a low dais, sharpening her blade with a black stone. "You fought well," she said without looking up. "Before you fell, my scouts watched. You shielded your comrades even when retreat was hopeless." Ren shrugged. "We don't leave people behind." "A foolish creed," she said. "It gets you killed." "Maybe," he said, "but it means you don't die alone." She stopped sharpening, looked at him. "Is that why you're still here?" "Because I wouldn't let you die alone." He didn't answer. She stood, blade in hand. "Fight me." "What?" "Fight me. Bare hands. If you win, you may leave. If you lose, you stay. As my guard. Forever." Ren laughed. Actually laughed. "You're 6 inches taller than me, built like a war engine and probably bench press meteors. No thanks." "Coward," she said, but there was no heat in it. "Realist," he countered. "But if you want a real challenge, arm wrestle me." She stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "Arm wrestle?" "Yeah, sit. Right here." He pointed to the floor. One hand. No cheating. No super-alien strength. Just human versus Zara. She narrowed her eyes. Then slowly she sat, placed her elbow on the stone, offered her hand. Her fingers were long, strong, calloused from a lifetime of war. His were rough from rifle grips and field rations. They clasped. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a conversation in motion. She pushed. He resisted. She tested his limits. He found hers. Sweat gathered on their brows. The wind howled, and for the first time in years Vela laughed. A short, sharp burst of sound, like cracking ice. He lost, of course, but not quickly, not easily. When it was over, She released his hand. You fight dirty, she said. I fight smart, he corrected. She looked at him, really looked. Not as a prisoner. Not as a curiosity. As a man. You remind me of my brother, she said softly. He was reckless. Kind. Always choosing the harder path because it was right. What happened to him? Betrayed. By a suitor who promised alliance and delivered poison. Her voice hardened. That is why I kill them. Not because I enjoy it. Because trust is a luxury I cannot afford. Ren nodded. Then why trust me? I don't, she said. But your scent doesn't lie. And neither do your hands. The fragile peace shattered 3 nights later. A new suitor arrived, Lord Korik of the Voral Dominion. A hulking, 4-armed warlord with a reputation for sacking entire systems. He came not with gifts, but with an army. His ship, a jagged obsidian dagger of a cruiser, hovered over the spire, its cannons glowing. I have come for your hand, Vela of the Skyfire. His voice boomed through the citadel's vox grids. Surrender now, or I will burn your spire to glass. Vela stood on the highest balcony, wind whipping her hair. Ren stood beside her, unarmed but unflinching. You should take cover, she said. And miss the show? He replied. Korik descended in a storm of fire and fury. His warriors poured into the courtyard, hulking brutes with chitinous armor and plasma whips. The Zara met them with blades and fury of their own. The clash was deafening. Metal on metal, screams, the crackle of energy weapons. Ren didn't fight. He watched, until he saw Korik slip past the front lines, heading straight for Vela's inner sanctum. The warlord knew. Kill the matriarch, and the clan would fracture. Ren ran. He found Korik in the memory chamber, a sacred space lined with crystal urns holding the ashes of Vela's ancestors. The warlord had just shattered the urn of her mother. You should have accepted my proposal, little queen, Korik sneered, turning as Ren burst in. Now I'll take your head instead. Ren had no weapon, but he had something better, distraction. You know, Ren said, stepping forward. For a guy with 4 arms, you've got the personality of a wet rock. Korik roared and charged. What followed was less a fight and more a desperate dance. Ren dodged, weaved, used the narrow space to his advantage. He smashed a crystal vase into one of Korik's eyes, slammed a ceremonial staff into his knee. But he was outmatched. A massive fist caught him in the ribs, sending him crashing into a wall. Blood filled his mouth. He tasted copper and dust. Korik loomed over him, drawing a serrated blade. Tell your gods you died for nothing. Then silver flashed. Vela stood in the doorway, her obsidian blade in hand, blood already drying on her arms. Her eyes burned with cold fire. Touch him, she said, voice trembling. Not with fear, but rage. And I will peel your skin off one nerve at a time. Korik laughed. You'd choose a human over a true warrior? I choose loyalty over lies, she said, and kindness over conquest. She moved like lightning. Korik fought like a storm. But Vela fought like vengeance made flesh. She parried his strikes, danced around his grabs, and when he overextended, she drove her blade through his 4th arm, pinning it to the floor. He howled. Ren, gasping, grabbed a broken shard of crystal and hurled it into Korik's back. It wasn't fatal, but it was enough to break his focus. Vela's blade found his throat. Silence fell. She stood over the warlord's corpse, breathing hard. Then she turned to Ren. You idiot, she said. You could have died. You'd have missed my sandalwood scent. He grinned weakly. She knelt beside him, her expression unreadable. Then, to his utter shock, she placed a hand on his chest, over his heart. You stayed, she whispered, even when you could have run. I told you, he said. We don't leave people behind. Outside, the battle raged on. But in that chamber, time slowed. The wind carried the scent of sand, blood, and something softer. Something like hope. Vela helped him up. Come, she said. The fight isn't over. As they stepped back into the chaos, something had changed. The Zara warriors no longer looked at Ren as an outsider. They nodded to him. Some even made space. And when Vela fought beside him, back to back, blade and instinct guiding them both, it wasn't just survival. It was something like partnership. Later, when the last of Korik's forces fled into the desert, and the spire stood bloodied but unbroken, Vela called a council. You defended our sanctum, she said to Ren before the gathered elders. You risked your life for a people who would have seen you as prey. I didn't do it for them, he said honestly. I did it for you. A murmur ran through the room. Vela raised a hand for silence. Then hear this. Ren Torvik is under my personal protection. He is no longer a prisoner. He is my shield. The title meant more than it sounded. In Zara tradition, the shield was the one who stood between the matriarch and death, not just in battle but in spirit. The one who saw her not as a weapon, but as a woman. That night, they stood again on the balcony. The stars were sharper than diamonds. Why sandalwood? She asked. My grandmother used it, he said. She said it calmed the soul. I kept a bar in my kit. Bad habit, I guess. She was wise, Vela said. They stood in silence for a while. The desert stretched endlessly below, beautiful and brutal. Tomorrow, she said finally, the Council of Clans arrives. They'll demand I choose a suitor from among them. Or abdicate. Ren turned to her. What will you do? She looked at him, her silver eyes catching the starlight. I will do what I must. But for the first time, what she must didn't feel like a sentence. Felt like a choice. And somewhere in the wind, the scent of sandalwood lingered, soft, stubborn, and strangely alive. The next morning came not with dawn but with dread. The Council of Clans descended upon Obsidian Spire like a storm wrapped in ceremony. 10 elders from 10 rival houses, some allies by blood, most by convenience, arrived on ornate skiffs that hovered just above the crimson dunes. They wore robes woven from comet silk and carried staffs tipped with the fangs of extinct sky beasts. Their faces were painted with ancestral sigils, their eyes sharp with calculation. None had come to honor Vela. They had come to test her. And they had all brought suitors. Ren watched from the upper gallery as the procession unfolded below. He'd been given a new tunic, deep gray with silver thread at the cuffs, and a ceremonial dagger he wasn't allowed to use. For show, Vela had said. Not for stabbing elders. Though if you do, make it clean. He smirked, but his stomach churned. Down in the courtyard of ashes, suitors strutted like peacocks dipped in arrogance. There was Prince Drell of the Iron Moons, who claimed his bloodline had once ruled 3 galaxies. Lady Syrah of the Glass Hive, whose skin shimmered like liquid mercury, and who declared she'd tame the wild Violet Queen with love and logic. And worst of all, General Vorin, commander of the Zara Exile Legion, a once-banished warlord who'd returned with a fleet and a hunger for the throne. Vela stood at the center of it all, regal and remote, her white hair bound in a warrior's knot, her violet skin glowing faintly in the harsh light. She hadn't slept. Neither had Ren. They'd spent the night reviewing battle plans, escape routes, contingency codes, just in case the council turned violent. Because in Zyran politics, diplomacy and assassination often arrived on the same skiff. The High Elder, a wizened matriarch with eyes like cracked obsidian, stepped forward. Vela of the Skyfire, she intoned, voice dry as bone dust. You have refused all worthy matches for 7 cycles. The bloodline grows thin. The clans grow restless. Choose now, marry, or surrender your seat to one who will. A murmur rose, not of support, of anticipation. Vela's jaw tightened. I will not marry a viper in silk. Then name your choice, the elder snapped. Or be named obsolete. Ren's hand tightened on the gallery railing. He wanted to shout, to leap down and drag her away. But he knew that would only seal her fate, and his. Then, from the entrance arch, a new voice cut through the tension, cool, melodic, and utterly unexpected. I offer myself. All eyes turned. Walking alone through the gates, unescorted and unarmed, was a woman no one recognized. Tall, slender, with skin the color of moss after rain and eyes like molten gold. She wore simple traveler's robes, dusted with sand. Her hair, fiery orange, was braided with dried desert blooms. She carried no weapon, only a satchel slung over one shoulder. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The Green Speaker, someone whispered. The last of the verdant seers, another breathed. Vela's eyes widened just slightly. Recognition flickered. The woman stopped before the dais, bowed once, and said, I am Nyrus of the Fallen Grove. My house is dust. My people are scattered. But my blood is old, older than Skyfire, older than Iron Moons. And I offer not my hand, but my bond. Silence. Ren leaned forward. What was happening? In Zara tradition, a bond was rare, sacred. Not a marriage of politics or lust, but of spirit. 2 warriors, 2 leaders, choosing to share rule not as husband and wife, but as equals. It was a relic of ancient matriarchal pacts, long abandoned. Vela stepped down from the dais. "Nyrus," she said, voice softer than Ren had ever heard it. "You vanished after the grove burned." "I survived," Nyrus replied. "As you did. And I have watched you bleed alone for too long." The elders shifted uneasily. This wasn't part of the script. High Elder Kethra narrowed her eyes. "You bring no fleet, no dowry, no clan." "I bring truth," Nyrus said. "And I bring this." She opened her satchel and withdrew a small, glowing seed, emerald green, pulsing like a heartbeat. The last heart seed of the verdant grove. Cannot grow in poisoned soil, but it blooms where two souls choose trust over fear. She placed it in Vela's palm. The seed glowed brighter, a collective intake of breath. Ren felt something shift in the air. Not just politically, but spiritually. This wasn't just a proposal. It was a test of everything Vela claimed to believe. And then, disaster. General Vorin stepped forward, his armor clanking. "This is mockery. A ghost and a seed? We are warriors, not poets." He turned to the elders. "Vela fears real power. She hides behind humans and myths. I say, let her prove her worth in the pit of echoes. If she wins, she keeps her throne. If she falls, I claim it and her." The pit of echoes. A gladiatorial arena carved into the bones of a dead god, where sound amplified pain and every wound screamed back at you. Few survived. None unbroken. Vela's face hardened. "You challenge me, Vorin? I demand trial by blade," he growled. "As is my right." The elders exchanged glances. Kethra nodded slowly. "The law permits it." Vela looked at Nyrus, then at the seed in her hand, then unexpectedly at Ren still standing in the gallery. Their eyes met, and in that look, Ren understood. This wasn't just about survival. It was about legacy, about proving that strength didn't have to mean cruelty, that leadership could be kind and still unbreakable. "I accept," Vela said. The crowd erupted. Preparations began at once. The Pit of Echoes lay a half-day's ride into the Shatter Dunes, a place where the sand sang with the voices of the dead. Ren wasn't allowed to accompany her, officially, but Vela had other plans. That night, she summoned him to the armory, a hidden chamber beneath the spire, lit by bioluminescent moss. Weapons lined the walls, blades that drank light, whips forged from comet tails, shields that could deflect plasma. She tossed him a belt with a compact pulse pistol. "You'll need this." "I'm not fighting," he said. "You are," she said. "Not in the pit, but after." He frowned. "After." Vela leaned against a rack of spears, her expression unreadable. "Vorin won't fight fair. He never does. He'll bring poison, hidden blades, maybe even a neural disruptor. The elders will turn a blind eye, because they want him to win. So what's the plan?" She stepped closer. "You'll be hidden among the Dune Riders. When the chaos begins, and you'll disable the disruptor emitters around the pit. They're what make the echoes unbearable. Without them, Vorin's advantage crumbles. And if I get caught?" She looked at him, really looked. "Then I'll kill everyone who touches you." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. He nodded. "All right, but one condition." She raised a brow. "You tell me why you really kept me alive." She was silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, "Because you didn't look at me like a prize, or a monster. You looked at me like a person." Ren smiled faintly. "And you looked at me like I might not be scum." "I still do," she said, and for the first time, there was the ghost of a smile on her lips. The day of the trial arrived under a sky the color of bruises. The Pit of Echoes was a sunken crater lined with black stone that vibrated with every footfall. Thousands gathered on the ridges. Zara clans, outlanders, mercenaries. Ren, disguised in a scavenger's cloak, blended in with a group of Dune traders. His pistol was hidden under his tunic. His heart hammered. Below, Vela entered alone, barefoot, wearing only a sleeveless battle wrap of crimson leather. No armor, no helmet, just her obsidian blade. Then Vorin emerged. He'd augmented himself. Cybernetic limbs gleamed under his skin. His eyes glowed red with tactical overlays, and around his neck hung a pulsing disruptor node, the source of the echo field. The High Elder raised her staff. To the last breath, they charged. The fight was brutal. Vorin was faster, stronger, amplified by tech. But Vela was smarter. She used the pit's acoustics against him. dodging so his own roars echoed back and disoriented him. She struck at joints, tendons, weak seams in his armor. Ren waited, watched. When Voron slammed Vela against the eastern wall, where the disruptor emitters hummed beneath the stone, he moved. He slipped down a maintenance chute he'd scouted earlier, crawled through narrow tunnels slick with ancient condensation, and reached the emitter core. 3 nodes, each protected by a biometric lock. He pulled a small vial from his belt, Nyrus's gift. Verdant sap, she'd whispered. It fools Zara Tech. It thinks it's lifeblood. He smeared it on the sensors. The nodes blinked green and shut down. Instantly, the pit grew quieter. The oppressive, skull-rattling echoes faded. Voron stumbled, disoriented. Vela didn't hesitate. She drove her blade through his cybernetic spine. He fell, twitching, systems failing. Silence. Then cheers. Not from the elders. From the warriors. From the common Zara who'd suffered under Voron's cruelty. Vela stood over him, breathing hard, blood on her hands. She looked up and found Ren on the ridge. Their eyes locked. But before the victory could settle, alarms blared. From the horizon, ships appeared, dozens of them. Sleek, black, bearing the sigil of the Terran High Command. Human ships. Ren's blood ran cold. A voice boomed across the desert. Familiar, cold, and merciless. This is Admiral Voss of the Terran 7th Fleet. By order of the Protectorate, Vela of the Skyfire is hereby charged with war crimes against humanity. Surrender her, and the human traitor Ren Torvik, or we will glass this world. The crowd froze. Ren's stomach dropped. Voss, his former commander. The man who'd ordered the raid on Zira 9, the raid that got his entire platoon killed. The man who'd left them behind. And now he was calling Ren a traitor. Vela's eyes found him again. Not with accusation. With understanding. Nyrus appeared beside her, the heart seed glowing brighter in her hand. They want you both, she said quietly. Not for justice. For leverage. You know too much, Ren. About the plasma forges. About the secret treaty with the Voral. Ren's mind raced. Voss hadn't just come for Vela. He'd come to erase loose ends. The elders panicked. Some called for surrender. Others drew weapons. But Vela raised her blade. No, she said, voice ringing across the pit. No more running. No more choices made by fear. She turned to Ren and Nyrus. We leave. Now. How? Ren asked. Their fleet blocks the sky. Nyrus smiled faintly. Not all ships are in the sky. She led them through a hidden passage beneath the pit. A tunnel that opened into a dry riverbed, where a sleek, organic-looking vessel waited, half buried in sand. Its hull shimmered like living bark. The seed ship, Nyrus said. Last of its kind. It grows, not flies. But it's fast. And it knows the stars. As they boarded, Ren looked back at Obsidian Spire one last time. His prison. His sanctuary. Inside the seed ship, the walls pulsed with soft green light. Vines curled around control panels that responded to touch and breath. Vela stood at the helm, her white hair loose now, her violet skin glowing in the ambient light. She looked free. Nyrus activated the engines. A deep, resonant hum that felt like the earth waking. The ship rose, silent and swift, vanishing into the ion storms above. Behind them, Admiral Voss's fleet fired, but their shots passed through empty sky. Aboard the command vessel, Voss slammed his fist on the console. Find them. Burn every dune if you have to. But in the storm-racked upper atmosphere, the seed ship folded into a pocket of quantum mist and disappeared. Not just from sight, but from the known coordinates of the galaxy. 3 cycles later, on a moon with twin suns and rivers of liquid silver, the seed ship landed in a hidden valley wrapped in bioluminescent ferns. Ren stepped out, breathing air that tasted like rain and memory. Vela stood beside him, wearing simple traveler's clothes, her blade sheathed but ready. Nyrus tended to the heart seed, which had already sprouted into a small sapling, its leaves shimmering with starlight. You could go back, Vela said quietly. To your people. Tell them you survived. Ren shook his head. My people left me to die. You saved me. I didn't save you, she said. You stayed when you could have run. That's what saved us both. He looked at her, at the woman who'd killed dozens for daring to see her as a prize, yet had offered him shelter, respect, and something dangerously close to trust. And then Nyrus spoke, her voice like wind through leaves. The seed ship chose you both. It doesn't do that for just anyone. Ren frowned. Chose us? Nyrus nodded. It only bonds with those who carry two things: a heart that's been broken, and a will that refuses to break. Vela looked at Ren. He looked back. No words were needed. In the distance, the twin suns set, casting long shadows that intertwined like promises. The war wasn't over. Voss would hunt them. The clans would fracture. The galaxy would burn. But here, in this hidden place, with the scent of sandalwood and alien blossoms mixing in the air, something new was growing. Not just a ship, not just a bond, a future. And for the first time in a long time, Ren didn't feel like a soldier, or a prisoner, or even a guard. He felt like a beginning. The seasons turned on the moon of Lyrithus, where twin suns painted the sky in hues of rose and amber, and rivers of liquid silver sang soft lullabies through the canyons. The seed ship, now rooted into the valley floor like an ancient tree, had grown into a living sanctuary, its branches sheltering gardens, its heart chamber pulsing with gentle light, its roots drawing energy from the planet's silent core. It wasn't just a vessel anymore. It was a home. Ren Torvik no longer wore the uniform of a Terran soldier. His boots were now stitched from desert hide. His tunic dyed with crushed starbloom petals, and around his wrist coiled a living vine that responded to his moods, tightening when danger neared, blooming tiny silver flowers when he laughed. And he laughed often now. Vela, once the feared matriarch of the Crimson Bloom, walked barefoot through the orchards they'd planted together. Rows of skyfire plums and Terran apples growing side by side, their branches entwined. She still trained every dawn, her blade flashing like lightning among the ferns. But she no longer fought alone. Ren sparred with her, still losing, always grinning. And Nyrus often joined them, her movements fluid as water, her golden eyes missing nothing. Nyrus, the last verdant seer, had become more than an ally. She was family, quiet, wise, and endlessly patient. She'd shown them how to listen to the land, how to heal with roots instead of rifles, how to build rather than burn. The heart seed had grown into a towering tree at the center of the valley, its leaves shimmering with stored memories. Laughter, whispered confessions, the clink of shared meals under twin moons. News from the wider galaxy still reached them, carried by rare traders, coated in starlight, or sung by the seed ship itself during its nightly communion with the cosmic winds. The Terran High Command had declared Ren dead. Admiral Voss, disgraced after his failed invasion of Zyra 9, had been court-martialed for war crimes of his own, using human soldiers as disposable pawns, falsifying intel, ordering planetary glassings without authorization. The truth, it seemed, had a way of surfacing, especially when survivors began to speak. On Zyra 9, the Zara clans had fractured, then reformed. Without Vela's iron rule, chaos threatened to swallow them whole, until the elders remembered the seed she'd left behind. A single pod, sealed with her blood and Nyrus's blessing. It had sprouted in the courtyard of ashes, and from it grew not a weapon, but a bridge, a living archway that linked the spire to the outlying villages, its roots healing poisoned soil, its blossoms calming tempers. The Zara began to change, not through conquest but through connection. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon and the valley filled with the soft hum of fire moths, Vela found Ren sitting beneath the heartseed tree, whittling a piece of driftwood into the shape of a Terran sparrow. "You're getting better," she said, settling beside him. "Still lopsided," he replied, holding it up. "It has character," she said. "Like you." He chuckled. "You used to threaten to break my spine. Only on Tuesdays," she deadpanned. And then, so softly he almost missed it, "I'm glad you stayed." He set the carving down and looked at her. Really looked. Her violet skin glowed in the twilight, her white hair loose and silvered by starlight, her silver eyes no longer guarded, but open, trusting. "I never wanted to leave," he said. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the river, the wind, the quiet pulse of the seed ship behind them. Then Nyrus appeared at the edge of the orchard, holding a woven basket. "Dinner's ready," she said. "And the ship just received a signal." Ren tensed. "From who?" Nyrus smiled, a rare, full smile. "From Lyra." His breath caught. Private Lyra. The soldier he'd tried to save during the battle on Zyra 9. The one he'd thought dead. "She's alive," he whispered. "Very much so," Nyrus said. "She's with a coalition of desert rebels, human and Zara, who've been exposing the protectorate's lies. She sent coordinates. And a message." She handed him a small crystal. He touched it, and Lyra's voice filled the air, tired but strong. "Torvik, if you're out there, know this, you weren't forgotten." You were the reason we survived. And if you ever come back, there's a place for you. Ren's eyes stung. Vela placed a hand on his shoulder, warm, steady. You could go, she said. He looked at her. At Nyrus. At the valley, the tree, the home they'd built. I already am back, he said. And he meant it. Weeks later, under a sky thick with comets, they held a ceremony. Not a coronation, not a wedding, but a binding. The three of them stood beneath the heart seed, hands clasped, as the tree's roots spiraled around their feet, weaving their life threads together in silent, ancient magic. No vows were spoken aloud. None were needed. The sea chip chimed in harmony with the stars. The river sang. The twin suns rose. And from that day on, they ruled not over worlds but over peace. They welcomed refugees, desert orphans, displaced warriors, exiled poets, broken medics, even a Terran engineer who defected after learning the truth. The valley grew, not with walls, but with open gates. Years passed. Ren's hair grayed at the temples. Vela's battle scars faded into silver lines she no longer hid. Nyrus's laughter became the heartbeat of their home. One morning, Ren found Vela teaching a group of mixed-species children how to throw a balanced strike. Not to kill, but to defend. Another, he watched Nyrus guide a young human girl in planting a sapling that glowed faintly blue, the first hybrid heartseed. And every night, without fail, the three of them sat beneath the great tree, sharing stories, silence, and stew made from Terran potatoes and skyfire spices. The galaxy still raged beyond their hidden moon. Empires fell. New wars sparked. But here, in this quiet corner of creation, kindness had taken root and flourished. Ren Torvik, once a nameless soldier left to die in red sand, had not just survived. He had built a world where no one was left behind. And as he lay back one evening, head resting on Vela's shoulder, Nyrus humming an old verdant hymn beside them, watching the twin suns kiss the horizon, he knew this was the happiest ending he'd never dared to dream. But life, in its quiet wisdom, had given it to him anyway. Not with fanfare, but with roots, with laughter, and with two women who'd chosen him, not as a prize but as a person. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.